Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. My name is Stephen Taylor. I'll be moderating the event this morning, and the first thing I'd like to do is to thank you all for being here. Those of you who've seen the program will have seen that we have quite a lot to get through in a short period of time. So without further ado, I'm going to get straight on with the event itself. And to do that, I'm going to invite our host, His Excellency Simon Thomas OBE, His Majesty's Ambassador to Croatia. I have to keep getting used to His Majesty rather than Her Majesty's. If you would like to take the podium and give your opening address, and on behalf of everyone here, thank you again for organising the event.
Well, Stephen, thanks so much. Dear guests, dragi gosti, dobrodani, dobrodošli, benvenuti, bunvenit, dobre došli, welcome. It's my huge pleasure to welcome you here all this morning to Zagreb and to the Hydrogen Valleys Forum. As I hope some of you know, this is the latest in a series of activities that we've been organising to promote commercial and scientific collaboration between the UK and partner countries on hydrogen. And I think we're joined this morning not only by Croatian friends and colleagues, but also by friends from Italy, Slovenia, Bulgaria and Romania too. And also great to have speakers both here and online from the UK who are keen to share their experience and expertise of building the UK's hydrogen economy. We're also delighted today to be partnering with the Croatian Hydrogen Association, the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, and of course the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. I'm going to keep my remarks really brief. You're here to hear the experts and certainly not me. But I did just want to say a very quick word at the beginning about why we're supporting the event. Look, all of you know, and that's why you're here, global interest in hydrogen and global demand for hydrogen is rising rapidly. A lot of countries have launched or are in the process of launching their own hydrogen strategies. In the UK, we launched ours in 2021, and we see low carbon hydrogen as a versatile replacement for high carbon fuels in the hard to electrify sectors and as a key enabler for delivering net zero. And as I hope you'll hear from some of our speakers in the course of this morning, we're putting a lot of effort into developing our hydrogen economy. Our headline ambition is to deliver 10 gigawatts of low carbon hydrogen by 2030, with over half of this coming from green hydrogen. But the strategy is about developing every part of our hydrogen economy. We're moving forward on production, transport, storage, as well as the investments in the policy framework that underpins this transformation. And alongside developing the UK's domestic hydrogen economy, the UK is increasingly looking outwards, engaging with other countries bilaterally and multilaterally to develop technologies together, to develop partnerships, to think together about the kind of global hydrogen market we want to shape. And we see this region and the countries represented here today as an important partner in that. And that's where all of you come in. And that's why these kind of forums, the conversations that will be had here in the room, out there over coffee, the knowledge and the ideas that will be shared and the partnerships that will be forged here are so important. So I'm really, really glad to see all of you here today and really looking forward to an interesting few hours ahead. Thank you so much. Hvala.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Unfortunately, Mr. Ivo Milatic, the State Secretary of the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of the Republic of Croatia, had an urgent matter come up and prevent him from being with us this morning, but his opening address will be delivered by my friend and colleague Vjekoslav Jukic, who is the head of the energy strategy at the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of the Republic of Croatia. Vjeko, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank you for organizing this conference. I think it's a huge step, and I'm pleased to see that rise in the number of hydrogen-themed conference and transforming discussions on hydrogen and its economy from a rarity to the necessity. The war and its impact on the energy market have brought much needed attention to the hydrogen economy on a broader scale. The outstanding opportunities in developing the use of hydrogen have been recognized, especially in transition of the demanding sectors such as transport or hard-to-abate industry. Hydrogen as an energy carrier and the hydrogen-based economy are integral components of European plans for the green energy transition, aiming to achieve EU clean energy goals and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We recognize the promising prospect in development of the hydrogen-based economy, and in line with our green policy, we adopt the Croatian hydrogen strategy until 2050 in March 2022. It is an important document that gives main guidelines for utilization of our potential and outlines our investments in the hydrogen economy. Furthermore, strategy goals will contribute to the transition of the current economy of the Republic of Croatia into a green and advanced economy. Regarding investments, Croatia defined its priorities in its Recovery and Resilience Plan, same as in European Regional Development Fund. Investments are aimed at setting up production of hydrogen and the establishing of hydrogen refueling stations and hydrogen distribution infrastructure in the transport sector. Additionally, the REPower EU chapter allocates funds for hydrogen refueling stations for road transport, decarbonization of rail and maritime transport, and for research into the use of hydrogen in industry. In parallel, together with our Italian and Slovenian colleagues, we had the vision to develop and establish our North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. The diligent efforts of all involved were acknowledged by Clean Hydrogen Partnership, and it was awarded with a grant of 25 million euros. Project is aimed to promoting environmentally friendly hydrogen technologies and regional cooperation. In addition to establishing a prominent hydrogen region of the maps of Europe and the world, the projects aim to tell a much broader story and bring together all relevant stakeholders who are already involved or intend to engage in low-carbon hydrogen initiatives in the territories involved. Furthermore, following the amendments to the Renewable Energy Sources and High Efficiency Cogeneration Act, which became effective in July 2023, the Croatian Hydrocarbon Agency was designed as a national coordinating body for hydrogen projects. The agency is currently in the process of drafting a hydrogen development plan and program. The plan and program will provide essential groundwork for upcoming legislation regarding the transport and storage of hydrogen. It is evident that we are fully committed to the green transition and pursuit of a climate-neutral and sustainable economy. It is also clear that hydrogen plays an important role in that transition. To conclude, Croatia remains committed to support research, development and innovation activities across all aspects of the hydrogen-based economy, both domestically and within the EU. Finally, I want also to thank Tomislav for organizing not just this conference, but also our study tour, where we had the chance to see the potential of UK and potential of cooperation with UK regarding the hydrogen economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Vjekoslav, for those words on behalf of State Secretary Ivo Miletic. Ivo Miletic has been a long supporter of the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. He was a signatory of the letter of intent which started the whole process and has been a supporter ever since. So it's a shame that he can't be with us today, but thank you for delivering his words to us this morning. I'd like to invite straight away our next speaker, David Walker, to take the stage. David is project manager at Progressive Energy, a HyNet partner in the UK, in HyNet Northwest. Dave has held a variety of leadership roles in technical and commercial areas, as well as project management with the net zero energy, hydrogen generation and chemical sectors, and most recently as project manager at Progressive Energy in the HyNet cluster, which involves significant and complex integration of a large number of stakeholders, including both blue and green hydrogen production plants and integration with storage. So Dave's going to tell us all about the architecture, design and integration of the cluster. Dave, thank you.
Many thanks, Stephen. And many thanks, Your Excellency, for inviting us and everyone for hosting us. It's a real honour to be here, so thank you very much. As Stephen said, I'm here really to focus on around what we've done as Progressive Energy regarding HyNet, but actually I've ended on a bit of a development cluster which has got a bit more of an EU focus as well, which should be quite interesting hopefully for you all. So really focusing in on first on who I represent. I work for a company called Progressive Energy. So to give a bit of background of what Progressive Energy do, we're just over 25 years old. We're a project developer in low carbon decarbonisation energy. We've been focused on multiple cluster-led programs, and we've been the real spearheading the development of the clusters in the UK. Our projects have really focused over the last 5 years around HyNet, and I'll talk a bit more about HyNet shortly. But actually, beyond that, we've developed the blue hydrogen plant that's focused in HyNet. That's called EET Hydrogen. And as you see the banner behind me, we've also expanded to be part of a joint venture with Grenion, which is a company focused on green hydrogen, providing green hydrogen within the HyNet ecosystem in the HyNet area. Beyond that, we've actually expanded to look at decarbonisation projects, linking the peak cluster with MNZ, which stands for Morecambe Net Zero. So it enables us to decarbonise cement factories, cement plants that are based in the Peak District, so as it's shown up on the UK, to remove the CO2 and store it offshore within just off the Bay of Morecambe. Our project's probably a bit next in line after HyNet, so we'll really focus on HyNet, but and I will talk a bit more about Bacton, which is on the East Anglia a bit later in the presentation as well. Before I move on, what's been central as part of our approach to hydrogen has actually been ensuring that we have a demand-led project, and Progressive has been central in developing two key projects. So these two key projects are HyDeploy, looking at what's the future of the use of hydrogen in within a gas grid, how much can be used for blending within that, but actually also industrial fuel switching. So we call this HyNet IFS. This enables us to demonstrate, and I'll talk a bit more about this, but demonstrate that hydrogen can be used as a fuel in industry to replace natural gas without an impact on the products that the manufacturing plants make. So before we go into HyNet, I thought it would be useful to develop a slide of what's needed for a hydrogen cluster. So what we've found, and what makes most sense for us, is actually the industrial cluster needs to be demand-led through industrial users. So there's a tendency of saying you can switch everything that's currently a natural gas user to a hydrogen user. Maybe that's not the answer. The answer's probably you've got to view it as what's needed to be changed to hydrogen, what can be electrified, but understanding what are your industrial users so that you can understand the demand, you can understand where the demand is, and how the infrastructure is going to be set. So within HyNet, as you'll see shortly, there are a number of glass factories. There's a number of power users which are needed to balance the grid that actually could use the hydrogen demand. The next point is actually understanding what the supply requirements are. So I suppose within HyNet, we've got a combination of blue hydrogen supply and green hydrogen supply. And we are blessed within the northwest region of the UK, of England, to actually have plentiful offshore wind and renewable assets to be able to generate green hydrogen. But also we do have depleted oil and gas reservoirs off the coast in the Irish Sea, in Liverpool Bay, which are being developed by a HyNet partner, E&I, to be able to take the CO2 from a blue hydrogen plant to enable blue hydrogen to facilitate the large demand of hydrogen required. And that's what we've done in HyNet. We see that blue hydrogen is the technology that's ready, that's present now, that's able to deliver hydrogen at scale to get the project off the ground. But we actually see the future being much more focused on green hydrogen. One of the key assets, if not one of the key aspects of HyNet, is that we have within the northwest more geology in a different location, and I'll show that on the map, for underground storage. This provides us with enough flexibility seasonally and daily for the hydrogen demand users. So obviously within an industrial setting, there's peaks and troughs of demand. This storage allows for that differences in demand, but also as we move forward and our reliance on green hydrogen increases, there's going to be a variation in supply. This really underpins how important storage is and actually what the benefits of hydrogen as a storage medium. It's a lot easier to store energy in the molecule rather than the electron. So once you've got all those recipes, ingredients for the recipe, we need to put it all together and make the cake. And that cake for us is the HyNet cluster, which is a little image here, and I'll talk through that now. So I thought I'd talk through some of those key elements before then leading into it. So what is HyNet? So HyNet is the leading industrial decarbonisation project cluster in the UK. It receives government backing through the UK's government Department of Energy Security and Net Zero as a Track 1 cluster. This ensures that we will be able to produce low-carbon hydrogen, which will replace the fossil fuel usage, again, for those industries that cannot do and switch to any other process. Enables us to capture and look up hydrogen, carbon dioxide emissions from the industry. And that's primarily done within the hydrogen context through the production of blue hydrogen, but also done through those impossible to abate sectors, such as cement, which within the cement industry, you cannot fuel switch. There is carbon dioxide produced from the fundamental process, which cannot be replaced by switching fuel. But really key to the HyNet proposition is that it's developing economic growth, it's developing skills in the region, and it's safeguarding jobs and making what is a part of the UK which needs prosperity from a very rich industrial heritage of spanning over 150 years to actually ensure that actually it's the forefront of the next industrial revolution that's coming around decarbonisation. As I said, our first step on the journey is actually looking at what's the demand. All of the users that are up here are members of the HyNet journey who have indicated that they are wanting to fuel switch. They are users which, for various reasons, cannot change to electrification alone. So to pick out a couple of examples, Ensert Glass produce the world's biggest bottling plant. They produce a large number. They make glass through, and they need high temperature furnaces, and they need to the only way that they can successfully decarbonise is through implementation of hydrogen. But all of these have then signed MOUs through progressive dealing with them, doing demonstrations with a number of them to show that these users can be switched to hydrogen. And we've then pulled in the hydrogen distributor in the area, which is planned to be a company called Cadent, who will then actually be responsible for delivering hydrogen to all of these sites. So that's all of these industrial users. Sorry, let me just, if you can see, are indicated by this icon up here. So they are distributed across all of the Northwest. These users could continue to burn natural gas and look to capture the CO2 from their emissions. However, they are relatively small, so the capital involved in that decarbonisation process would be very high, and there would need to be an infrastructure to take that CO2 away and to deliver it to the CO2 store. What's much more efficient is actually building a hydrogen network which runs parallel to a natural gas network in the first instance, which can then supply all of these industrial fuel users across the northwest of England and into North Wales, which is the Welsh, North Wales is based over here, to supply that low carbon hydrogen. The core of all of this is then becomes the hydrogen production. So just to orientate everyone, there's Chester's a large city in the northwest of England, Manchester and Liverpool, I'm sure you would have heard of it too. Just north of Chester, at Ellesmere Ports, there's a large refinery called Stanlow. It's run and operated by SR, and SR, or EET Fuels as they're known, are planning to develop a hydrogen plant. EET Hydrogen will then produce blue hydrogen, will capture 97% or more of the carbon dioxide produced. They'll generate this via reforming methane. So the carbon dioxide is captured, it's then transported, it's handed over to E&I. E&I are the responsible partner for delivering what's called this carbon dioxide transport and storage network. They'll transport the carbon dioxide across the English and Welsh countryside in an underground pipeline through to their point of air terminal, which will then get compressed and sent offshore for long-term storage over geological time. So that's the core infrastructure for the CO2. Hydrogen, really, it focuses on the production from standalone and the storage over in underground in Kuiper. I think I'll go over this very quickly, but the core element is that this will produce a large number of jobs, over 50,000 jobs, 42,000 regionally. But you can see the amount of investment that, with the government backing it, it will actually then deliver as part of the decarbonisation of over 110 million GVA each year, as predicted. I've talked about this fuel switching, so again, I won't talk more on this, but all of these sites, as part of another government programme from the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, have demonstrated that fuel switching to hydrogen is possible by on-the-ground trials. And this is the real detail, just to really show what's needed in this, and my colleague Chris will be talking about this shortly afterwards, but it's actually developing the infrastructure is key. 125 kilometres worth of pipeline is needed to link what is Ellesmere Port on the left-hand side to the storage site, and then all of these tentacles of this octopus links to industrial fuel user. And this is all needed to implement hydrogen and to develop that, and Cadent are the responsible partner that are developing this programme. INEOS Innovin are the partner using a salt cavern technology. It's been proven for many years with natural gas to actually develop and deliver hydrogen storage. So as I said, we can have that flexibility of operation, and they're key to the cluster's success in terms of hydrogen demand and supply. And the last point on HyNet is really the EET hydrogen, their core. And as I said, do we see the future for blue hydrogen? Future of hydrogen plants springing up in 10 years' time? Maybe not. But actually what we need enables us to get the volumes of hydrogen now, and then we see green hydrogen plants becoming more and more dominant as time goes on. And that nicely puts me onto here. And there's more about Grenion behind me, and please do talk to myself and Chris more about Grenion. But it's a low carbon hydrogen, it's a green hydrogen project partnered with Statkraft and Foresight, developing green hydrogen opportunities linked to renewable assets. Lastly, and before I hand back to Stephen, just wanted to throw up much more earlier in its concept, we're developing a hydrogen hub around Bacton. We're doing this in conjunction with a subsidiary of Sumitomo, a Japanese company, but we see Bacton Hydrogen as an ideally positioned to develop hydrogen within the UK market, but actually, as I've highlighted in that yellow box, it's got links through interconnector to Europe, and it's got a real potential to supply hydrogen, both through potentially, again, an early stage to get the ball rolling, a blue hydrogen project. But as you'll see on the logo, there's many offshore wind farms in that area, and there's the potential to generate green hydrogen within the area and export that to the rest of the UK, but to actually European users as well. So we're incredibly excited by the prospects of this project. So sorry if I've overrun, but I'll hand back now. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. And as Dave said, his colleague Chris Taylor, who will now take the podium, is head of consents at HyNet Northwest. And Chris is an environmental specialist with over 20 years' experience delivering clean energy projects, including the HyNet project, a full chain carbon capture and storage and low carbon hydrogen project to provide the infrastructure to produce, transport and store low carbon hydrogen across the Northwest and North Wales, and to capture and transport and lock away the carbon dioxide emissions from industry. So Chris is going to pick up the baton where Dave left off and talk about consenting, delivery, and next steps in HyNet. Thank you, Chris.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you everyone for your time today. It's really a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'd like to talk to you about some of the key things that we need to consider when we're developing low carbon projects of the type that Dave has described, how we've gone about developing HyNet and similar projects, and the sort of things that you may wish to consider as you look to develop your own Hydrogen Valley project. So I'll start with some challenges. We're looking at an energy transition. We're looking at fundamentally a change to the way businesses operate, the way industry works, and the way people live their lives on a day-to-day basis. And that creates, with any change, some issues that we need to resolve and work through with people in order to make that happen and to gain acceptance for that change. So we've got a number of things that are happening with the development of a new hydrogen economy. We have new technologies in many cases. We're talking about very large geographical areas, both for HyNet and similar projects where we cross between England and Wales and spread further within those regions, and for yourselves working across a very large geography for your hydrogen valleys. We've got different demographics. There are very different populations that the projects will affect, and different interests. Some people may live and work closely with industries and businesses that are switching to hydrogen. It's a huge opportunity for them. It would drive inward investment for people who wish to use that infrastructure. But equally, we've seen there's an awful lot of connections involved in developing these projects and a whole ecosystem for hydrogen. And that means there are going to be people who are affected by infrastructure who may not see the direct benefits. And we need to be able to articulate to them why this project is so important. We have got this ecosystem of linked projects. That means when our stakeholders are dealing with the project, it's complex. I'll talk more about that shortly. We have very many partners needed to deliver these. There are multiple components to the project. There are installations, there's infrastructure, there's all the supporting network in terms of skills and jobs that have to go into it. And we're talking about creation of a net zero economy. It is a change to the way we operate, and change is always challenging for people, even when it's a huge opportunity for the region. So these are some of the things that I'll talk about this morning. Public acceptance. How do we ensure that people understand what is coming to the region and what it means for them, that they understand issues around the development of that infrastructure, the construction of it, safety of it, and so on. Things that people may naturally be concerned about, understand that better. We need consent. Very much the focus of my day-to-day role is making sure that we have the appropriate permissions in place and that we've done the work to demonstrate that these projects are being developed in the right way. And we need policy, because to affect this change needs governments to have in place the structures and the funding mechanisms to make this transition happen. Quickly on engagement. So we need acceptability of a project to the public. We have to be able to articulate why these projects are needed and what they mean to people. So we have to understand who we're speaking to. We have to be speaking to them all the way through the development of our project. Bring people on the journey with us of this change. Be creative in how we speak to them. There will be lots of different channels that we need, and we need to understand the message that we are giving to people as we communicate with them. And that communication needs to be very clear. There must be a vision for the Hydrogen Valley that people can understand at a high level and say, okay, this is what is happening. And ideally, we're creating advocates for our project, people who will go out and speak on our behalf and say, this is why the project is needed. It might be industries that want to decarbonize and are switching to hydrogen, maybe local politicians who see what this brings to their region in terms of inward investment and so on. And we must step through to help bring people on that journey with us. Okay, complexity and consent. This is a map of the consents required to deliver HyNet. So each one of these boxes is a different project that requires a planning permission and a permit in order to be able to operate. Okay. So in here we have carbon capture projects. We've got CO2 pipeline, transport and storage. Importantly, we've got hydrogen producers, both blue hydrogen and green hydrogen. We have hydrogen storage, we have hydrogen transmission and hydrogen users. It is a very complex picture, and when we're dealing with stakeholders, they're not going to see all of this at any one time. They may have a single project in front of them that they're being asked to comment on or to consent, and they're going to need to know how that fits into the bigger picture and communicate how that project relates to the vision for the region. Overlaid on here, we also have in some of the boxes around projects links to government support packages, government funding, and that really helps our stakeholders understand the timing of when these projects are required in order to hit those objectives that we've set at a national level of 10 gigawatts of hydrogen by 2030. Okay. Policy support, absolutely critical. There needs to be policy support through each part of the process for both for hydrogen production, transport and storage. Each part of that, and I've set it in there how the UK has gone about doing so. Other options may be available for how the support mechanism happens, but we have to have policy and funding to drive that change, incentivise businesses to be part of this journey with us. Okay. So this is the next steps part of the presentation. We have to explain why hydrogen is important to people. Okay. We can decarbonise through electrons or we can decarbonise through hydrogen. They both have a role and both are going to be needed in order to decarbonise our economies. So understanding where and how we will use these technologies is incredibly important. It's a quick one to explain why hydrogen is important, and it can't just be electrification. Okay? We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the number of electrons needed to decarbonise all of our industry at once. Okay? And really importantly, in the middle is the ability to scale and store energy when we switch to a greater proportion of renewables in our energy system. We must be able to store the energy to deal with the fluctuations. Hydrogen allows you to do that in a way that batteries or, for example, pumped storage, hydropower just does not. We need to explain to people why we're using hydrogen. Particular aspects of our economies require it. Industry and dispatchable power are two absolute key examples for where we need to use this technology. We need to understand what type of hydrogen we're going to use as we design a new hydrogen valley. Is it CCUS enabled? Do we have the infrastructure available to support that? Is it the right technology at the right time to develop at scale? Can we move to electrolytic? Do we have enough electrons available and storage available for that to be able to switch to electrolytic or green hydrogen? And are there other opportunities to decarbonise further with negative emissions by using biohydrogen with CCUS? So, thinking about elements of a successful cluster or a successful hydrogen valley. We need to understand demand. Who's going to use this? What cannot be electrified, like the glass production that Dave has spoken about already this morning? Do we have storage? This is absolutely critical to a large-scale hydrogen economy, is being able to manage fluctuations in production and use. It unlocks so much in the way that we use hydrogen, and how do we manage that? Similarly, do we have CO2 storage to enable that CCUS-enabled hydrogen to happen? And what infrastructure do we already have? One of the really fantastic things and opportunities that we had in developing the HyNet cluster, that we will have with the Bacton cluster that Dave spoke about, is the existence of existing infrastructure. Do we have pipelines in the ground that we can reuse? Are they suitable? Are they going to the right place? Do we have import-export terminals? Do we have existing links to storage? Natural gas storage that could be converted to hydrogen? depleted oil and gas reservoirs that could be used for CO2. What can we use already to make this transition happen sooner and more cost effectively? So, hopefully that was almost time, Stephen. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. And yes, I look forward to discussing this further with you in the Q&A.
Thank you, Chris Taylor. I'll invite our next speaker, Jonea Sedler from HSE, to take the stage. And as she does, I'll just let you know that Jonea worked with the rest of the team on the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley's Horizon Europe project, a project that was awarded flagship status by the Clean Hydrogen Partnership of the European Commission. So she's one of the key architects of that project and also one of the project managers moving forward over the next, well, I was going to say 6 years, but 5.5 years left. Jonea, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to this forum, and I will talk about a little bit more about North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. It's quite a journey that we had for the last 3 years, but we all know that the renewable hydrogen is a very good potential in combating climate change, to have a vast potential also for the industrial development in hard-to-abate industries and all other sectors as a maritime or a transport sector, and also has a very good potential for the job creation. That's why 3 countries, Croatia, Slovenia, and Italy, especially Friuli-Venezia-Giulia region, together decided to start the initiative of North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley and to be one of the most promoted hydrogen valleys in Europe in past year. What is the ambition of the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley? Is to create a hydrogen-based economy, social, industrial ecosystem, which will be based on the quadruple helix actors. As I mentioned, the target territories are Slovenia, Croatia, and Friuli-Venezia-Giulia region in Italy, and also one partner is from Spain. But it's very important that we have a lot of partners. 37 of them is included in our consortium, and we were granted with 25 million euros of funds from Clean Hydrogen Partnership. We started with the work with the project last year in September 23, and we launched with the kickoff meeting in Portoroz. And also, as Steve mentioned, the project will be durated for 72 months. So we are on the beginnings, and we are developing a very interesting story. What is very important and very crucial for this North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley is that not only that we have a very good number of industrial partners, for example, from Italy, steel and glass producers, and also cement producers in Slovenia and Croatia, but we have all institutional partners from all 3 regions as partners in the project. That means that they are involved in the work within the North Adriatic Valley, and they also have the fulfillment to be completed during the project. Together with that, we also have the research community, University of Ljubljana, Rijeka, and University of Trieste are partners, and they will be developing monitorings and creation of new skills for the students and etc. And it's very important also that we have that research community as a part of the valley. HSE, Slovenian holding of power plants, is the lead partner of the whole consortium. We are very glad to be as a leader of this whole group. And I must say that we have a lot of history on the producing of electricity from renewable sources and also from the coal sector, but not from the hydrogen. So we are very keen to learn a lot more about the hydrogen as well. And what is the aim of the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley? is to create that cross-border market for the renewable hydrogen. Our goal is to produce up to 5,000 tons of the renewable hydrogen per year from different renewable sources, and 20% of them should be transported through the cross-border from one country to another. So this is the example how the proposed solution could be seen to produce on one hand the hydrogen and to use it on the other hand for the utilization of it and also for the cross-border exchange. It's very important also that we cover all the value chain of hydrogen use, and not only the production but also the use of the hydrogen from the storage, production, distribution, and also for the maritime transport, hard-to-abate industry into energy sector. We will create 17 pilot tests throughout the project lifetime on the different locations within the territories. And I mentioned 3 main pillars will be covered with these pilot tests. As I mentioned, we received 25 million euros of funds from Clean Hydrogen Partnership, but this is only the drop into the ocean of what is the hydrogen valley, the capacity of it to complete all the investments and all the target that we like to have. And we calculated that more than 300 million euros is estimated that the whole project will be valued at the end of the lifetime, so that we need additional investments in it. On one hand, the European funds from different calls and everything, and also the national funds is very important to have it. So, for example, 700 million euros is planned to involve also from Italy to develop different hydrogen projects, not only North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, but the different other projects. So it's very important that that part of the institutional work is done to be completed and implemented into the project lifetime. And also, North Adriatic Valley shows a very good platform for new skills and competences. That's why all 3 universities will start with the development of new programs for the students and to have initiative to involve them into the project. And we see that very good vehicle for new job creations that will be necessary to implement all the work done in the North Adriatic Valley. Very important key factor is also that we will develop a non-profit association, ASBL, within the next months, which will be the key to stimulate, to find new projects, new partners that will like to have hydrogen valleys in their territory, maybe just to be informed what is going on in our valley, and just to connect all that new and old hydrogen valleys within the Europe and especially Central and Southeastern Europe. And we must say that we are very proud on our hydrogen valley, because when the evaluation went through, we received the Seal of Excellence because we were the best awarded project in that year. And also, President of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, was talking about the development and the initiative of the Hydrogen Valley on our region before we started with the work in the project. So we are very, very proud of it, and I think that we will have a fruitful next 5.5 years and maybe more, because new ideas are coming up. And we will working very hard to complete it. And just for the last slide, I would like to invite you all to visit our website, to follow us on all the social media, and you also have on the tasks a QR code for the newsletter so that you can apply to it and follow us and maybe to contact us if you need any information or to join us with the initiative. You're very welcome. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Yonea, also for staying perfectly within your allotted time. Yonea mentioned that one of the crucial factors in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley project was the active participation of the political institutions from the three territories. And our next speaker, who you've already heard from this morning, but not speaking his own words, speaking the words of the State Secretary, is Vjekoslav Jukic, who's the Head of Energy Strategy at the Ministry for Economy and Sustainable Development of the Republic of Croatia. So Vjeko, if you'd like to take to the podium once again. Vjeko was one of the principal architects of the National Hydrogen Strategy in Croatia and was nominated by his ministry to be Croatia's representative on the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley Joint Working Group, which is the working group which brings together all those members of the quadruple helix that Yonea talked about to make sure that there's adequate representation of all stakeholders from the political institutions, the research community, industry, and of course, the general public as well. So, Vjeko, if you'd like to tell us a little more about how the situation is developing in Croatia and how the Croatian vision of the hydrogen economy will develop over the coming months and years.
Thank you, Steven. Greetings once more to all of you. I think I had great introduction from the Steven. So I will try really to be fast because you already, as we told, heard something from me this morning. So when I started to work in the energy sector in the Ministry of Economy, then Energy Union in February 2015 was presented. And one of the dimensions of the Energy Union, one of the pillars is decarbonization. So basically, decarbonization is not a new topic in the EU and not in Croatia also. After that, at the end of 2015, we also have Paris Agreement. So basically what we had is to start talking more and more about decarbonization and about the reduction of CO2. So as you can see, regarding the green transition, Croatia as a part of EU is also firmly committed to the green transition and the climate neutrality. And also, one of the topics that we want to decarbonize is energy sector. We had a very good opportunity and we have the good chance for boosting the renewable energy sources. So in our current strategy, and that strategy soon will need to be revised because of the possibilities, we announced that we will have over 2,500 megawatts of renewable electricity capacity till 2030. And most of that will be from the wind and solar, but also we have the potential of geothermal energy. And what we want to boost is not just wind and solar, but also geothermal, as you can produce 24/7. And as I mentioned in my previous speech, we adopted in March 2022 hydrogen strategy of Republic of Croatia until 2050. It represents our national vision and development of hydrogen economy in Croatia, but also we covered with the strategy all segments of the hydrogen value chain, from production, storaging, transport, utilization, but also research and development. And what is maybe mostly needed to be highlighted here, also regional cooperation. And it also outlines our key guidelines, how we will do things regarding the development of hydrogen economy. And I think it's also a strong signal for the private investments, because we stated in the strategy we will put some public money in the development of hydrogen economy, but we expect that most of it will be private investments. And regarding the public money, we have some, and I already mentioned that in my previous speech, mostly, maybe most important is recovery and resilience plan. We already in the original version, let's say, of the recovery and resilience plan put the allocation for 10 megawatts of electrolyzers and 6 hydrogen refueling stations. But after the war in Ukraine and Repower EU plan, we also revised our recovery and resilience fund, and we allocate additional money for the refit of rail locomotives from diesel to hydrogen. We also allocate some money for the projects in hydrogen and for the additional renewable hydrogen refueling stations. We also have ERDF money where we put allocations for the additional electrolyzers and for additional hydrogen refueling stations. So as you can see, we are putting, or we find that transport sector in Croatia is most mature for implementation of hydrogen, but also we want to tackle the hard-to-abate industry. What is also possibilities regarding the public fund is modernization fund. Croatia is one of 10 countries, now it's more, that can use modernization fund, and one of the possibilities is to invest some money in the hydrogen. I won't talk much about the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley because Irnea gave me the perfect timeline about that, but Croatia and the ministry is part of those projects. And you all know, you all hear about the 25 millions, and now I'm mentioning second time, and Irnea already mentioned it, and 37 partners and everything else, so I will just skip this slide, but I want to highlight once more that Croatian Hydrocarbon Agency became national coordination body for hydrogen. So basically now we have in the ministry great help for them, and they are now in the process of preparation of hydrogen development plan and program, what will be some kind of action plan for the strategy, and it will be done till the end of this year, hopefully. And it will serve as foundation pillar for future legislations. Legislation also need to be tackled in the future regarding the Croatian hydrogen economy development. So, to conclude, Croatia is fully committed to the green transition, and we found that hydrogen will play an important role in this transition. Also, we want to boost research, development, and innovation across all aspects of hydrogen economy, special education, because we need that is significant and that is mostly wanted to have the strong hydrogen economy based on North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley project. So, thank you for attention.
Thank you, Vjekoslav, for outlining Croatia's vision of the future. And I'd like now to go back to the UK, to the most northern country in the United Kingdom, Scotland, and to Aberdeen, and ask Claire Stevenson, who is team leader of the projects team at Aberdeen City Council, and she will talk about Hydrogen H2 Aberdeen and where hydrogen is already here. Claire is, as I said, team leader in the council and has responsibility for the Clean Hydrogen Partnership Joint Initiative for Hydrogen Vehicles in Europe, the JIVE initiative, and she's going to tell us all about the history, present and future aspirations of that initiative and other things in H2 Aberdeen. Claire, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and echo what everyone else has said. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and it's been lovely hearing the presentation so far. Some really interesting information and exciting things happening now. So I'm happy to be up here and take a little bit of a step back and tell you all about the exciting things that have been happening in Aberdeen. And we are very proud to say that hydrogen is here. For the past decade, Aberdeen have been delivering innovative hydrogen projects as part of an energy transition and a move towards a low carbon economy. We've recognised that in order to retain the skills in Aberdeen and therefore maintain the economy, we need to move from an oil and gas centric, where we have been for the last 50 years, into renewables, but retain the skills that we have in Aberdeen. So this presentation will take you through Aberdeen's hydrogen story and our ambitions for the future. So Aberdeen's early hydrogen projects were developed in line with European strategy and European funding. Simply put, without the European funding, we would not have made the progress that we have had to date. Aberdeen's one of the pioneering leaders of the hydrogen revolution in the UK, and our early work has shaped the UK government and the Scottish government policy as we see it today. When Aberdeen started out on its journey over 10 years ago, these policies didn't exist, so it's really great to see a wealth of information available now, although a lot more is required. I think I'll just quickly run through this. So I'll go into this in more detail, but just showing the initial strategy was back in 2013, and that really set the path for deploying a number of different hydrogen vehicles and technologies. And we've balanced out the supply and demand through a number of different projects, as I say, principally funded through Europe. And that takes us up to our current situation, where we've recently entered a joint venture with BP for the commercial supply of a green hydrogen supply. So, as Steve was saying, my background is mainly around buses. The first bus project for Aberdeen was back in 2014, which was high transit and high velocity. So these two European projects collectively delivered 10 hydrogen fuel cell buses along with a hydrogen refueling station. It was the largest deployment at the time. It's hard to think that now. We've had such great advances. And both the bus manufacturer, Van Hool, and the station owner, BOC, were involved as partners, which was really important for that collaboration. The buses were in operation for just over 4 years. It was seen as a pilot project, so they have now been rehomed for training. There's across the UK, colleges and universities now have them to advance their training and upskill the mechanics. The end of this project perfectly coincided with our entry into JIVE, so that's the Joint Initiative for Hydrogen Vehicles in Europe. And these, just to reiterate again, these collaborations are hugely important for the city. Without them, we wouldn't be able to access joint procurement and therefore economies of scale. Aberdeen took delivery of the world's first hydrogen double-decker bus in October 2020, and they've been deployed since January 2021 with our local operator, First Bus. We are hoping that by the end of this year, that fleet will increase from 15 to 25. So the buses have already travelled almost 2 million kilometres, and they are seen as being a lot more reliable compared to the first bus project. Most of that will be due to advances in technology, but we also see it as being due to huge developments in the supply chain and in skills. So it's a lot easier nowadays to get access to parts for repairs, and a lot quicker for those repairs to be made. And I also think being in Zagreb today, I hope you're aware of JIVE and JIVE 2 projects and their initiative with various roadshows throughout Eastern Europe. So I think we've already targeted 9 different cities, one of them being Zagreb at the end of November in 2022. And it wasn't one of the right bus double-decker buses. It was a Catano bus with a Toyota fuel cell. It was trialled in the city for a few days. And I believe that the third roadshow is just about to kick off, and it will be travelling through Bulgaria, Greece and Romania. So watch this space for some more information coming soon on that. So it's buses, but the council itself recognised that we cannot meet net zero just by transitioning to electric alone. So we have been exploring different hydrogen technology since 2015. This is mainly dual fuel retrofitting of the vehicles that we still have. It's seen as an appropriate bridging technology. It's the injection of hydrogen into the diesel engine, and that is seeing reduction in emissions of about 30%. Depending on the vehicle type, this can be up to 45%. So it's not the perfect solution, but it allows us to keep running the vehicles that we have, and perhaps most importantly, they're not reliant on the hydrogen. So if there are any issues with supply, the buses, apologies, the vehicles can still be on the road and meeting service, which is very critical to the people that are leading the operations. However, we do have one full fuel cell waste truck, which was delivered through the Hector project. Aberdeen were the lead partner in this project, and it delivered 7 different waste trucks throughout 7 cities in Europe. And this is the one that came to Aberdeen. It hasn't been perfect, but that's why we do these projects. That's why we get access to the funding so that we can trial the different technologies. As an example, this truck costs about 3 times the price of its diesel equivalent. So there's a lot still to be done, but with having access to the partnerships and funding, it allows us to trial it. And that's in Aberdeen just now. This is just a photo taken on a lovely sunny summer's day in Aberdeen last year. The sun does shine. Just showing the deployments that we've had with the various vehicles. We think we're probably one of the most varied fleets in Aberdeen, and we've trialled over 100 vehicles so far. It also highlights partnerships that we've made. So we've got a Royal Mail van, also a Keenan's waste truck, who are a local waste firm that are really keen and ambitious with their net zero plans. And we also have cars. We've got a fleet of Toyota Mirais and Hyundai Nexos that have been in the city since 2017. They are used by a number of different public and private organisations, including our Lord Provost, and they are also on our local car club, which means that members of the public are able to hire and trial the cars, which has been really important in terms of getting that public acceptance and showing that it's just a normal car. So of course, we couldn't have the vehicles without the supply. We've got 2 publicly accessible refuelling stations. Kitty Brewster refuelling station is right in the centre of the city. It was built in 2015, and that was our station that was used to refuel the first buses. It was upgraded in 2018 to allow for 700 bar pressures as well, so we can now refuel all vehicle types from this station. The second station, aptly named AIX, it's actually Aberdeen City Hydrogen Energy Storage, which is to the south of the city in a small town. It's a smaller station, but it also has dual pressure, so again, we can fuel all different types of vehicles. They both have electrolyzers on site, so the hydrogen is produced on site and stored there, and there are green power purchase arrangements with the national grid, so it is considered green hydrogen that we have. So the reality is, with all the good work that we're doing and the vehicle deployments that we're introducing, we are going to run out of hydrogen in the region in the next couple of years, which is why we have proposed the Aberdeen Hydrogen Hub. It also allows us to make that energy transition as part of the wider Scottish Government and carbon reduction targets. So in March 2022, the Council entered into a joint venture with BP, and it's to supply a cost-effective green hydrogen at a commercial basis to the market. So initially, factoring and producing to the current fleet of vehicles and future fleets that we have. But the ambition in Aberdeen is really around phase 2 and phase 3, where we will look to expand to rail and marine. A lot of Scotland's rail network can be electrified, but it can't all. So we really want to explore that. And then further ahead in phase 3 would be the export of hydrogen. And I could probably talk about Aberdeen City Council all day, and I've just touched lightly on the projects that we've delivered. But I thought it was important to highlight that we're not the only ones in Aberdeen now that are delivering projects, and that's what we want to happen. As a local authority, that's not where our place is. So it's really positive to introduce Energy Transition Zone Limited, and they are looking to implement a physical area in Aberdeen to bring together not just hydrogen, because that's not the only option, but looking at offshore wind, and most importantly, the skills and innovation, all in the one place, all working together for the good of the region. And then a subset of that is the Transport Action Group, where we want to put the focus on action and be frontrunners in the hydrogen transport sector. It was only established last year, but it has grown hugely in that period. Currently, we meet every quarter, but we might increase that given the developments that we're seeing now. And every new meeting that we have has new people really interested in furthering their own ambitions. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you again, and please feel free to reach out to us for more information. We do have a YouTube channel that's got some nice videos of the other vehicle deployments that we have in Aberdeen. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And I'm going to ask Claire to open up the video link to our next presenter. Massimo Canali is the General Director at the Central Department for the Protection of the Environment, Energy and Sustainable Development in the autonomous region of Friuli-Venezia Giulia in northeastern Italy. Massimo was nominated by the regional government to represent the autonomous region of Friuli-Venezia Giulia in the joint working group of the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, and so he'll be giving us an Italian perspective on that initiative and on the collaboration between Friuli-Venezia Giulia, Croatia and Slovenia. And he'll provide some insights on the regional, national and European funding instruments that are already being made available to make that vision a reality, and also share with us some of the headline results from a recent survey that the region conducted into public opinion and understanding of the hydrogen economy, both from the general public and from companies. Massimo, I hope that you can hear us, and the floor is yours. Massimo, ci senti? Massimo? Whenever you're ready. Can he hear us? I think there's a delay, yes. I think he's still seeing the end of the presentation. Massimo, can you hear us?
Good morning all. I hope you listen me.
Yes, perfect. The floor is yours, Massimo. If you'd like to share your screen with your presentation. I think there's clearly a delay between here and Friuli-Venezia Giulia, but that sounds like the end of my introduction, so Massimo hopefully will join us now.
Good morning to all. I hope you listen me.
Yes? Can you send a message just to say carry on with the presentation? in the chat.
Okay.
We can hear you. You can start.
You can start. Good morning to all. I hope you listen me.
Okay, I think maybe we'll move to our next speaker and then come back to Massimo when we've resolved the technical issues there. So I hope that our next speaker, Margarita, can hear me. Margarita, are you online? Tomislav, I'm not sure whether Margarita can hear me from there. If you could just check that she is available. There she is. So Margarita Vigrandash is the Deputy Head of the Decarbonisation Strategy, Zero Emission HGVs Strategy and Implementation, Decarbonisation Strategy at the Department of Transport in the United Kingdom. And she is going to give us a general overview of the role of hydrogen in HGVs and the current programs through which the Department for Transport fund this, as well as outlining their upcoming zero-emission HGV and coach infrastructure strategy. Marge, the floor is yours. Yes.
To hydrogen and transport, and my team specifically focus on HGVs, so the heaviest of our trucks, and I can talk to you about our experience of a couple of funded programs that we've done and then touch on the experience of buses. In the UK, as I said, there were a number of programs that we've done. Probably starting with hydrogen for transport, where we funded I think up to 7 projects that looked at lighter vehicles, so cars and vans, and introduced refueling stations. And the biggest lesson we took from that is that for hydrogen in transport to be successful, you need to be able to locate together hydrogen supply, so their fueling stations, and the vehicles that are using it. And that way you really get the best chance for the offtake for it to actually work. So following that program, which was called Hydrogen for Transport, we've designed the Tees Valley Hydrogen Transport Hub, which is, again, as I said, locating hydrogen supply and demand in one area in Tees Valley in the UK. And at the moment, we are funding 3 projects, and those projects are ranging. So there's an airport machinery project, which is looking at creating something like an airport tug, so something that pulls the aircraft in as it comes in and converting that to hydrogen. Also like a baggage handling product. Another project is looking at decarbonizing heavy goods vehicles. So we're funding up to 20 hydrogen fuel cell HGVs. And with that, we're also providing funding for refueler stations. So if the companies are making the investment in these vehicles, they'll have somewhere to fuel them up. The other program I wanted to talk to you about is a slightly larger scale program that we are running. It's our £200 million demonstrator program, which is demonstrating both hydrogen fuel cell and also battery electric heavy goods vehicles on UK roads, alongside of the fueling and charging infrastructure. So we'll be having up to 60 hydrogen fuel cell HGVs on UK roads, and they'll be coming from companies like Scania, and there's also a company called HVS, which is Hydrogen Vehicle Systems. They'll be providing these vehicles, and We're now in the sort of the planning stage for these projects, and they'll be going with vehicles and infrastructure being live in 2025. Because I'm sure your experience has been the same. These projects and building refueling stations takes a very long time in terms of planning, in terms of securing hydrogen. So we are definitely working with our delivery partners there. But I think kind of what we have been seeing is that the trend is likely to be for hydrogen at the most uses in these heavier applications. So for HGVs that need fast refueling and that need longer ranges. So I think battery electric trucks at the moment are kind of around the 300 kilometer mark in terms of distance. And if you are a haulier who needs to go really long distance, hydrogen seems to be offering that. Of course, the challenge is that the vehicles are still in prototype, so we're very much excited and looking forward to what companies, vehicle manufacturers can show. And through this demonstrator program that I just talked about, we'll be demonstrating the actual real-world range of both battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell trucks. So, how do they actually perform when it's raining outside, when the vehicle is going uphill, it's fully loaded, the driver has the heating or air conditioning on. What does that do with range and how is it affected? So it'll be really interesting to see the results when they start to become available. And finally, I do want to talk about buses, because I think that might have been an area of interest. So similar to trucks, we're adopting a technology neutral approach. So I'm just checking to make sure that nobody's messaging me to say you can't hear me. So I'm going to proceed and hope that everything's all right. So for buses, we're funding both hydrogen buses, but also battery electric. In the criteria for funding, that's one of our principles. So we say we will consider all technologies fairly, assessing cost, contribution to decarbonization, but also their utility. Just got a message that you can hear me perfectly, so happy days. So it's also for buses, we're taking a place-based approach. So we are working with regional governments, with local authorities to enable them to make the best choice for them. So far, in terms of the amount of funding for buses, we have provided 330 million in funding dedicated specifically to zero-emission buses. And the one program that is probably would be of interest for buses is our 270 million zero-emission bus regional area, also called Zebra 1. We are shortly will be making announcement on funding of Zebra 2 to build on the success of the first one. So it's really kind of to, as I said, help regional governments to see what approach works best for them. So I'm just conscious of time, and I think my colleague was trying to speak as well. So in conclusion, I think the view in the UK government at the moment is that hydrogen is a significant industrial opportunity. It's likely to play a very key role in decarbonizing, as I said, these sort of heavier vehicles, but also, of course, industrial processes, power. So we're really interested, and of course, maritime and aviation, either via direct use of hydrogen or via sustainable aviation fuels. So I hope this has been useful, and I'll pause now, and thank you so much for your time.
I don't know if you can hear me, Marge, but thank you for your presentation. And I would just invite Tom and Dinah to stand up for a second, just so that people know that in the networking session, there are a couple of people from the staff of the DFT who will be here to meet with you all. We'll move straight back to Massimo Canali. And Massimo, if you can hear me, you're free to start. If you can go into full screen mode so that we can see the slides a little better. And the floor is yours. And Tomislav, you may need to repeat that so that you can hear it through your laptop.
Massimo. Puoi cominciare. Good morning to all. I begin my presentation. I hope you listen me. Now I'm go to full screen. I speak about North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, FVG, Friuli Venezia Giulia region, Slovenia and Croatia. The summary of my presentation, the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley challenges and opportunities, the vision of the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, the Friuli Venezia Giulia regions independent working group, the activities and focus on funding to the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, speak about the colleague Sedlar and SPD the SVG summary. This is the summary. The North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, challenges and opportunities. Friuli Venezia Giulia, defined as a strong innovator according to the EU Regional Innovation Scoreboard 2023, among the top 3 Italian regions with a better overall innovation index at EU level. In the the next year, SNAM H2 Innovation Center between 7 scientific and research institutions, statal entity in our region, and the TSO SNAM SPA. An important focus is, of course, into sustainable energy and industrial hubs, especially Trieste and Monfalcone Harbour. Hydrogen Valley is, in effect, the total territories of our region and a territorial ecosystem that integrates the entire hydrogen value chain from production to end use. Very important is in the March 2022 the letter of intent between Friuli Venezia Giulia, Slovenia and Croatia in order to create the condition to accelerate the application of solution based on the energy vector hydrogen. And important is the trilateral joint working group made up of representatives designated for the institutional, scientific and industrial components of the 3 territories. This is an important model, I think. This is the image of the entity that I speak about, with 7 regional clusters that you see in this slide. The vision. The introduction of hydrogen into the regional energy system, starting from the most mature sector, leading to its progressive extension over a long-term horizon. Long-term environmental improvement, mitigation and recovery. Support industrial research and strengthen research infrastructures to create, through experimentation laboratories, a territorial specialization based on the vocation of the region's scientific and research institution. The model is that of applied research. Important is for attract private investment for all the Europe and all the world. Important is the collaboration with the Regional Innovation Valley on transitional scale capable of connecting with other valleys at a European and international level, and ensuring investments have impact. The region's international working group is the place where we work to realize the politics of these important activities. Depending on the topics covered by the collegial activity, the group meets periodically where necessary with the participation extended to representatives of the regional scientific and industrial sector. The model is institutional, scientific and industrial, together all to works. This is the principal activity made in these years. A speedy focus on funding, especially on Italian national recovery and resilience plans, in Italy PNRR. This is the important measures from the industrial sector to research and execution sectors. The model applied research. In green, the sum of euros is, if you see, is very important from in last year to 2026, like the target of PNRR. A particular project is the flagship project. 5 regions in Italy go to hydrogen systems: Piemonte, Friuli Venezia Giulia, Umbria, Puglia and Basilicata. 10 million to region to flagship project is a project of research on applied research. You see in this slide research infrastructures and testing and experimentation infrastructures. If we are a small region, the investment is significant. 40 million is to replicate the PNRR project, and 10 million for the flagship project to sum with national funds. There is another type of funds and investigation, another 17 millions. This is the regional programs with European funds of FSCC, you see in these slides. And there is a particular project with the application on airport in near city of Udine. You know the EU Horizon Europe and the system of clean hydrogen partnership joint undertaking. The North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley project on European Call of Horizon. You all know this project that speak about a seller from HSE. Speedy, we make a survey with the society SVG next year. One topic is on the population. This is the champion, the period, the sample, and the methodology. These some results. and the answer of the people to the topics. Interesting, 90-40% of citizens believe that hydrogen has a future as an alternative fuel. However, 90% do not believe it will used in the long term. To the companies, this is the champion, the period, and the methodology. This is some answers and some topics. Interesting is 50% of companies consider it appropriate to invest in hydrogen. This is a low percent. Interesting, the implication of the initiative. 73% of respondents positively rate the initiative to reduce emission and develop the regional economy. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Massimo. Apologies to you and to the audience for the technical difficulties that we had there, but I think you managed to give a flavour, a vision of how important the hydrogen economy development is for the region of Friuli-Venezia Giulia, as well as the national government in Italy and across the European Commission. With that, we come to the end of the formal presentations, but we're going to move straight into a panel discussion with the speakers that are physically present here in the room. So again, I'll thank Marge and Massimo for their presentations virtually, but it's difficult to interact remotely with that type of presentation. So I'll ask all of the speakers to do what they're doing now, which is attach their microphones. I'm going to do what I always do, which is say that the best thing ever is if we have direct interaction with the audience. So if there are questions from the floor, we'd be more than happy to take them and to pass them to the members of the panel best placed to answer them. But I'll also do what I also do every time I do this, which is recognize that nobody will put their hand up immediately. In fact, nobody has put their hand up immediately. So I'm going to ask some questions and just get the ball rolling in terms of starting off the discussion. So we've heard a lot about the importance of hydrogen. And I think unless there's someone who vehemently objects to this assertion, we can take it as read that hydrogen will be a part of the energy transition. How big a part it'll be may be up for debate. Whether it'll be green hydrogen or a mixture of green and blue and other sources of hydrogen, also up for debate. The rate of development and evolution of the process we can discuss. But I think we can take it as read that somewhere in the mix there will be hydrogen. So this moment of discussion and collaboration between the UK and the Croatian players, as well as players from the macro region and beyond, so looking at the partners in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley from Italy and Slovenia, but also from the other countries in this part of Europe. One of the reasons that the European Commission was very happy to see the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley initiative was the fact that it was the first of its kind in South Central Europe. And I think it's important to continue that movement in this part of the world, but the more that we can collaborate and partner with partners in the UK and other countries, I think the better. And we've heard several times that collaboration is the key to making these things work. Collaborations between countries and collaborations between the four actors in the quadruple helix, as Yanea mentioned, that was a key part of the vision in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, but I think it also came out of Dave and Chris's remarks about what has been done in building the cluster in the UK. It was very important to have a number of actors actively engaged in that process. And one of the things that I learned in the discussion with them and with Claire yesterday evening was how important the question of trust was. And that's something we've seen here in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. Without trust, you don't get anywhere, you don't get the ball rolling. And we went through a phase where everybody believed that if there was institutional backing, things could work, but without it, they couldn't. The people on the production side believed that they could produce hydrogen, but only if there was a market to take it. The potential off-takers said that they could use hydrogen so long as there was a guarantee of supply, and we were left with this situation where everybody agreed that it could work, but it could only work if everybody did their part simultaneously. And I think that came out of the discussion about the HyNet cluster in the UK. It's been the experience in Aberdeen. It's certainly been the experience in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. So I'd like to throw open the discussion, looking at how important collaboration is, how important trust is, and what are the key things that we can do to build and maintain that trust and that collaborative environment within different stakeholders in a geographical area, between geographical areas, and a personal moment of joy of mine was the fact that the UK has rejoined Horizon Europe, and that opens the door now to more projects between the UK and partners in Europe, and I know that's something that Claire said she's directly interested in cultivating and developing. So if there are those of you in the audience interested in partnering with UK organisations in future projects, the door is very much open. But I'll just very quickly go along the panel and ask, if there were one thing you could change, Dave, that would really help accelerate the drive, the transition, and the drive towards the hydrogen economy, if you had a magic wand to wave, what would you change to make sure that things accelerated and kept going, build that momentum and keep it going strongly?
Absolutely, a great question. I suppose we're in a good position of the technology actually is ready and available and can be implemented. For me, answering that question is actually speeding up the regulatory framework and getting those business models supported. The government, I should say, the UK government is doing a fantastic job. But in terms of that, that's the key thing to get things going and to get things moving, to get the support that's needed to develop all of the different parts of the infrastructure, the production, the storage, the supply, and the users. That's probably the key thing that would be great. Wake up tomorrow morning and have that available so that we can then move on and deploy this technology, which is proven at scale immediately.
That's great. Thank you, Dave. And I think you've neatly handed the ball over to Chris because it's his job to get the consenting procedures done. And when talking to Chris, one of the questions I asked him yesterday was, obviously in the UK you're dealing with one overarching government, so it should be fairly straightforward, but you quite rightly pointed out that you've also got the independent authorities in Scotland and in Wales, and that can create some situations like we're facing in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley with the autonomous region of Friuli Venezia Giulia, which also answers to the national government, and then the relationship between Italy, Croatia and Slovenia. So tell us a little bit, Chris, about how you see that process evolving and the challenges that you face in terms of the consenting, and if Dave had his magic wand, how you would make all of that happen more smoothly and quickly.
No, absolutely. It is a really important point because the development of a regional hydrogen infrastructure doesn't stop at geographic boundaries, doesn't stop at political boundaries. The need for to link hydrogen producers, transport, storage, hydrogen off-takers, is much wider than that. Within the UK, certainly across the devolved administrations, and really, in the future, I hope, as part of a European network and trade in hydrogen. For me, close to home, the issues that I deal with on a day-to-day basis in trying to drive forward the consenting process for these projects, and the one which will likely be faced here, is that you are dealing with different administrations across different regions, and sometimes even within, it may come as a surprise to people, but even within some institutions there can be some bureaucracy, and one of the key roles for me is trying to break down those barriers to information sharing, to understanding that the bureaucratic barriers can throw up. So I spend a lot of my time working with government organisations, local authorities, at both a political level and a technical administration level. Also working with national regulators in England and in Wales, trying to bring them together and let them see the entirety of that ecosystem that we are trying to build, and help them understand how those components fit together, where you may have a regulator who has a particular component of a single project on their desk, but without the big picture. It's like they have a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle. And it's only when you put the entire jigsaw in front of them, they can see why that piece is relevant, how it fits, and therefore how best to do their job in regulating that so that the entire jigsaw can be delivered. So in terms of my magic wand to make something change, it would be to break down those barriers. But what we need to do is not just throw our hands up that those barriers exist, but we all need to work to break down those, have forums like this where people can speak to each other, build that trust, build understanding of what needs to happen, and then we can all move forward and look at development of that new net zero economy together.
Thanks, Chris. And I'll remind you all that I'm just filling in until somebody comes up with a question from the audience about things you'd really like to talk about and hear about. So at any point, feel free to interrupt me if you have a question. But in the meantime, Yonea, you're representing a company that is the lead partner in a consortium of 27 partners plus 10 affiliated entities, 37 organizations across multiple territories in an industry-led project. So I think you'll recognize a lot of what Dave and Chris talked about in terms of their cluster being very much driven by industry players coming together and sharing a vision of what they can do non-competitively, but remaining competitive between them in terms of the work that they do on the market. How important is it for you that there was this public sector commitment from the European Commission, but also from the regional government in Friuli, Venezia Giulia, and the national governments in Croatia and Slovenia to co-finance the pilot phase of that project and make it happen so that your board and the boards of the other private sector companies involved could have confidence in going forward and making their commitments to making the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley a reality?
Yes, it was very important because, as you know, the hydrogen economy is not developed yet. So our management in the company, as we are a state-owned company, they didn't want to hear anything about something to invest if there is no economical model in it. So we have to be we were very consistent and very keen to present the project as it is, that is a research project, and that we will need co-funding from the European Union and also from the national level institutional funds, so that we can set up the whole business case to close the finding gaps and everything. So it was very, very hard work, but with all the risks that we can foresee in this stage, we were successful, and we are going on with the story. So yeah.
You certainly were successful in the project that you lead was not just funded, but topped the league table in that call and was declared a flagship project by the Commission, by the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. Vyacheslav, I'll move on to you. That commitment, your ministry represents that commitment in terms of public sector backing of the evolution of the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. And I know that you have Croatia has its own vision of its hydrogen strategy that is then integrated with the visions in the neighboring countries that form part of the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley and beyond. And I know that you've traveled far and wide to get ideas and see how public sector involvement in that evolution of the hydrogen economy can work. Not least, I think you've visited Aberdeen, so we'll talk about that in a moment too. But how committed is the Croatian government and your ministry to seeing hydrogen play its part in the energy transition, and how do you think the type of engagement that we're seeing today with public and private sector actors across borders, how important is that to making that evolution happen in the coming years?
Well, thank you. I think that you said right thing when you mentioned that one of the reasons why this North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley project was well seen by Clean Hydrogen Partnership is because of the location. It's put in the place where there is no hydrogen economy. So basically it was interesting not just because of the cooperation among free territories, but also to start from the scratches. And I think that, as I mentioned in my presentation, Croatian hydrogen strategy is a very important tool, strategic tool for us, not just to show how Croatian government and our ministry is devoted to the development of hydrogen economy in Croatia, but also to show the private investors that there is a real thing there. There is nothing yet, but still there is a lot of things happening and preparation is happening, so hopefully we will see some results very soon. On the other hand, I think that this regional cooperation is extremely important because we are not big economies. And it's important to have some kind of cooperations and some, share the visions among us, how to produce hydrogen, but also how to uptake the hydrogens, where are the possibilities. And we saw on the presentations that it's not so easy to build the pipelines for the hydrogen. They said chicken and egg. I often say it's penguins that are standing, and look at the sea, and they are not sure is orca yet here. So nobody wants to jump. And we are now on that kind of situation where we are all standing and looking at the sea, and I'm not sure who will jump. Probably somebody who will be pushed. But
I think if enough of them crowd at the edge, people start falling in.
Yeah. So that is something that, and I see my role and the role of my ministry is to start crowding the cliffs and start to prepare this jumping of the penguins in the sea. So
I think it's a great analogy. It's also the second time penguins have come into the discussion during this event. I'll explain that later. But if I may, Vico, thank you for that. I'll move on to Claire. And Claire, you made it very clear yesterday evening and again today that Aberdeen is open for business in terms of collaboration, but you also talked about not just meeting Aberdeen's needs for the energy transition, partly through hydrogen, but also its ambitions to become a net exporter of hydrogen in the future. Tell us a little bit more about how you would see that and where you would see that as part of a bigger picture of a hydrogen economy that is transactional and where hydrogen is flowing across borders, and those that can produce more than they need are able to sell it and to use that to help invest further in the development of the hydrogen economy.
Yeah, and it might change as the years go past, and maybe it's a little bit of naivety or excitement, I don't know, but when I spoke about the hydrogen hub, our phase 3 is looking at export, and ideally we would like to be at a process of having phase 2 and phase 3 happening at the same time. And the facility that is expected to be built between the council and BP is of modular design, so it will be scalable. So initially we're looking at around 800 kilograms of hydrogen being produced per day, which is relatively small when we hear of all the projects coming through now. But round about that phase 2 and 3, when the wind farms are coming online, and that's the key, is getting access to that renewable resource, which is so important for a number of reasons, but also for driving down cost. Where the competition will probably come is around cost and whether the UK and Scotland can compete on the worldwide market. And we spoke a little bit about that last night with the sort of desert countries that have huge expanse of area for solar arrays, and that is going to be accessing cheap hydrogen. So it's a little bit of a race in that sense, so it might change, but certainly in the short term, from an Aberdeen and region point of view, to be able to produce hydrogen that is in excess of what we need to start even supporting other regions in Scotland and the UK. I think where we are in the UK, it is not developed as quickly as we had hoped. By this stage, we should have had hydrogen plants in Glasgow and Dundee, certainly, which starts to connect down to the south, and that hasn't happened. So we're really keen to try and support our neighbours close and further afield. And just to touch on the Croatian visit last year, our team put a lot of resource into supporting visits and people coming to Aberdeen, and it is really positive to be here today. It's like full circle, and we see the benefit that it has, so that's, yeah.
Great, thank you, Claire. Yes, Tom, a question.
Hi, it's really nice to be here, and as alluded to previously, I'm from the Department of Transport in the UK.
I think there's a microphone on its way to you. If you bear with us just 2 seconds, there you go.
I represent the UK's Department for Transport, along with Dina, my colleague here. So I just wanted to ask the three questions. Firstly, it's really great to see Aberdeen represented here. I visited Aberdeen with a delegation of some of you. It's great to see your faces again. And it was great to see the work that Aberdeen is doing, and great to see you here. So three questions, if I may. Firstly, I wondered how, I think you mentioned that you've been working with Aragon in Spain, and I wondered how the engagement with a region outside of the direct North Adriatic zone has been, and how that engagement has taken place, and whether you could talk a little bit about that. Secondly, I'd be interested to hear views on sourcing green hydrogen, whether or not you'd be interested in importing it, or whether all production, you see production sort of domestically in the area. And then thirdly, the rollout of hydrogen HGVs and other vehicles. Do you have any concerns about the production of those vehicles, and whether or not you think the supply of vehicles is going to sort of work in the medium to long term? Thanks.
Okay, I'm tempted to answer two of the questions, but I'm going to let Ionea and Vjeko perhaps answer the questions regarding the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley. But just full disclosure, as I was involved in getting Aragon involved in the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, one of the reasons for that was that the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, in response to the call, needed to be open to collaboration with other hydrogen valleys, existing and future. So part of the project was based on collaborating with some of the hydrogen valleys that already existed and helping to start new ones. But Aragon is one of the external partners. There are others as well. Fondazione Bruno Kessler is an Italian partner, but not from the region of Friuli Venezia Giulia, and they're heavily involved with the safety and security aspects of the project. But Ionea, I don't know if you want to add anything based on your interactions with Aragon. I know it's early stages perhaps for that, but yeah, essentially I think that was
that was the key, to have one partner outside of the region, but it is very important, I think, that Fondazione from the Aragon is the partner because they have a lot of knowledge of the existing hydrogen valleys that are developed or completed in Europe, and they can help us with the replication of our valley to another new locations, and they have a lot of good practices and a lot of good tools to use it inside of our valley, and also to help new one with the establishment and with the new calls. So yeah, this is the case. I think
just to add a specific on that, they've actually developed an IT tool to evaluate new hydrogen valley concepts and to look at a series of data points to assess their viability and feasibility. Vjeko, I don't know if you want to add anything just to the general concept of collaboration beyond the North Adriatic territories.
After establishing the North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley project, I said many times to the many different occasions that we are open to cooperation. And I honestly see the possibility also to cooperate with UK. So basically, I think that this will be part of the answer, how we will boost the hydrogen economy all over Europe, is to start to cooperate, because there is a lot of challenges still, and as I said, we want to highlight importance of research and development. So basically, that won't happen if we not cooperate together.
Yeah. Maybe Claire, you'd like to say a few words about the market and supply chain for hydrogen vehicles, particularly trucks and heavy goods vehicles. I think that was the thrust of your question, Tom. And then maybe Chris and Dave, if you have anything to add based on your experience in the cluster, we'll come to you as well. Claire?
The short answer is there's not enough. We need that to ramp up quite quickly because we know that the private organisations and fleet operators are ready to trial, and particularly in the UK with, you know, we drive on the other side of the road, so that's difficult as well. So we see that in Europe the market is developing quicker, and in the UK the blocker is around large-scale investment and needing to place large orders for those companies to then want to bring them over to the UK, because otherwise the price is so expensive. Like the waste truck being around 3 times the size of a diesel equivalent, we can't expect companies to make that investment, especially when we're still at a stage of trialling the technology. It is improving though, and we are seeing more, and we're always very keen. And as I say, we have hydrogen in Aberdeen, so any vehicle trials we're happy to support. The bridging technology is, I think, going to be here for a while. We partner a lot with Ulemco, who are a company based in England that carry out the retrofits, so you're not having to worry about completely changing your whole fleet. You can do it as a transition. And as I say, whilst we're still in the infancy of hydrogen supply, the vehicles are at least still able to go on the road and meet the expectations that are required of them. So it doesn't solve all the problems, but it does give this little bit of transition time whilst we're waiting for full fuel cell vehicles to come online.
And obviously we won't go there, but there's also the old joke that, you know, we could have a phased switch from driving on the left to driving on the right. First year just cars, second year buses, third year heavy goods vehicles, but there are some technical problems with that maybe. Chris, Dave, I don't know if you want to add to that in terms of the experience in the cluster.
Briefly on, again, sort of making sure that we have the full integrated hydrogen economy to be able to support these changes. And clearly we have regions, cities like Aberdeen and others in the UK who are spearheading the rollout, pardon the phrase, of hydrogen vehicles. But of course, what we want from that, once the technology is demonstrated, is for that to be available to the all regions and all cities across the transport sector. And that means we need to balance that with also the supply of hydrogen, because there's no sense having these vehicles available if we can't produce the volumes of hydrogen and distribute that hydrogen for people to be able to use it and build on that fantastic work that cities are doing now in showcasing that technology. And that means that we do have to have the rest of our hydrogen economy to balance that. You know, at the moment we're probably talking green hydrogen projects where we're producing tens of megawatts of hydrogen to be able to support these fleets as they begin to build. But nationally, for each of us, our transport system, even if we're just talking about those key ones of buses, heavy goods vehicles, trains perhaps, we are going to need not tens, not hundreds, but thousands of megawatts of hydrogen production, and that must grow very rapidly to keep pace with the opportunity to decarbonise parts of the transport sector that this offers us.
I'm going to keep you in reserve, Dave, because I know Professor Frano Barbier had a question, and knowing him, it might be a technical question, so I might bring you.
Yes, I'm Frano Barbier. I'm a president of the Croatian Hydrogen Association, and I think the cooperation, or actually learning from experience, those who have already established a hydrogen valleys or hydrogen projects, would be crucial for success of our endeavors. And most particularly, we heard Vyacheslav said that we are ready to jump into hydrogen, but nobody wants to make the first step. And one of the reasons is we don't know what to expect. So I think exchange of information and with the people who already passed this process, particularly with the respect to the codes and standards and permitting. For example, we have a plan to establish 11 hydrogen refilling stations in Croatia, but we don't know what codes and standards to apply. We don't know what permitting do we need. We even don't know who's going to be responsible for those permits. And also, I don't see a scenario where we will actually produce hydrogen centrally and then distribute hydrogen to these 11 refueling stations with the probably diesel trucks. It's going to be a laughing stock if we do this. So you can actually produce hydrogen at a refueling station. I visited Aberdeen a refueling station, the Kitty Brewster, just a few months after it was opened, and I noticed it's in the middle of residential area right next to it. So my question is, what process did you have to actually have a permit to build such a refueling station? Because in Croatia, we probably will not have problems with the refueling station that just sell hydrogen, because you can have a diesel or gasoline refueling station in the middle of residential area. So I don't see that there'll be a problem with the hydrogen, but maybe there will. But you cannot have such a station where you produce hydrogen, because that goes under industrial area. Producing hydrogen is industrial business and has nothing to do with the residential area. So my question is, how did you solve this problem? Thank you.
I'll throw that straight to Claire and then perhaps also come back to you guys on that point. Claire?
Yeah, the guys at the end might have more up to date. I might come back to you because I don't know the specifics other than it wasn't a painful process, and you're absolutely right. The Kitty Brewster station is, there's a train line running alongside it. We have our fleet department, and then we also have residential areas. It is slightly set down, almost not in a bunker, but it is down, which naturally created some of those exclusion zones that are required. I would like to think that your collaboration with Clean Hydrogen Partnership and their wealth of information and contacts within Europe would be able to help, because you're not the first one to do it in Europe, and it might be slightly different in the UK, that surely you're right, we need to be talking to each other. So I'm happy, maybe we follow that up separately and see what we can do.
Thanks, Claire. And
I'm happy to say something. Effectively, from our perspective, it's understanding the risk, and you're right. It's the first view you think it's new technology, new risk, but actually, from what we're doing and putting it to a high-net perspective, we're doing the large hydrogen production scale in very similar, in an industrial context, in an industrial area, in a refinery. Smaller hydrogen units, we're actually maybe looking at different areas where it's maybe still in the industrial area, but a lighter industrial area. We're doing what we call quantitative risk assessments to understand what the impact is, understanding all that, and actually the results are the measures that we've developed over the oil and gas and petrochemical industries over the years actually are highly relevant. So we can draw on the decades of experience that the UK has, as will all the countries in this region, of developing pipelines, high-pressure pipelines for natural gas. All the same codes and all the same are in existence. And I completely agree in terms of that knowledge sharing and reference understanding that needs to be done, and I suppose that's what should be done as we kind of progress further and further. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I actually hope that HyNet is the first penguin, and then those lessons learned for that diving in we can then share and build public confidence as well, because the question we get as well a lot of the time is, well, where are the references for this? And we always say, actually, well, hydrogen's been used in pipelines and actually in industry for decades. We're talking a bit of a scale difference here. So actually, it's nothing to be worried about, and actually using projects like HyNet as a reference to yourself, I think would be very useful.
If I may, I'll bring Chris in as well, because one of the points that came out of the discussion that we had yesterday evening was the fact that sometimes when you're looking at pipelines for hydrogen, the current rules are more stringent than the rules were for the pipelines that went in years ago or decades ago for gas or oil. And what's your view and your experience there in terms of how things have changed and how, quite rightly, more stringent regulations mean we have to be a little bit more creative, perhaps, in the routes for some of those pipelines?
Yeah, indeed. I touched during the presentation on those opportunities for reusing infrastructure as well, and I'll come back to that here. You know, when we are building new infrastructure for hydrogen, we have the opportunity to look at that, you know, decades of experience that Dave's mentioned, safety codes and so on, so we can ensure that wherever we place our hydrogen production, where we have electrolyzers, where we have storage, where we put pipelines, those things are based on current, you know, detailed scientific and engineering understanding and procedures that are in place, and working alongside regulators that are in place who deal with those, hydrocarbon assets at the moment. One of the interesting ones is where we have existing assets that we want to reuse, because there are pipeline networks, installations, terminals that we can reuse for hydrogen infrastructure to make it happen faster and cheaper, which is for everybody's benefit. For some of those ones, they may be assets that are several decades old and developed at a time where we don't have the same safety standards that we do today. And in those cases, we may have residential areas that were either present previously or have over time encroached on those assets. And in those cases, we need to have a very close look at whether reuse of that asset in its existing form continues to be appropriate for hydrogen, or whether we have to say, we will need to do some work to either upgrade or relocate that asset. So do we have to divert a pipeline, for example, that's existing? Do we need to replace sections of that pipeline with thicker wall pipe? How can we do that in an efficient way to roll out the hydrogen infrastructure that we need, while maintaining the very high safety standards that people quite rightly expect of any infrastructure that we develop now?
Thanks, Chris. We have time for one more question. If there's a question from the audience, I'll throw that open. Otherwise, I'll ask one of mine, because I've got a couple of dozen left that I wanted to ask. Mm-hmm. So,
I'm not sure that we answered Anton's second question regarding the import of the hydrogen, if I recall it well. So maybe if I can just...
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, basically, we all know that Europe is, it's fossil fuel importer, huge fossil fuel importer. So when we talk about hydrogen, we also look about possibilities of securing of supply of the energy within the EU and production within the EU. I think that first, tangible, let's say, goals was put by REPowerEU plan, where it said that 20 million of tons of renewable hydrogen will be needed in EU till 2030, and half of that will be imported. So I think, we need to import definitely some hydrogen, and I think that there is a lot of third countries that has a good opportunity for the renewable energy and everything else. So it's fine, but we need to be also sure about the security of supply. And we just don't want to switch one, import to another. So we need to harmonize those two things. I think that is important.
Yeah, I think one thing that we can say historically is that the North Adriatic, because of its geographical position, has been an important hub for the import of hydrocarbons from the Middle East, because they can come up through the Suez Canal, and the Northern Adriatic is the uppermost part of the Mediterranean and the fastest way to get anything coming from the Middle East and the Far East into Europe. It's 4 days shipping to carry on round to Hamburg or Rotterdam on the North Sea. So it's certainly likely that any future imports coming from the Middle East and North Africa, where the cost of certainly photovoltaic or concentrated solar production of renewable energy for electrolysis to produce hydrogen is likely to be cost effective, also because of the general cost of land and labour there. So there are certainly discussions ongoing about possibilities for the importation of hydrogen from that part of the world coming this way. But there are also conversations going on the other side of the world. There are certainly announcements about deals being done in Brazil to produce low-cost hydrogen there and bring it across to Europe. And there, the route is more likely to land on that western side of the European coastline than up to the Adriatic. So I think some interesting developments in terms of the importation. I'd also like to see, as we talked about with Claire, transactional imports and exports of hydrogen within the European context, Europe as a geographical, not necessarily a political reality, but I think right across Europe there is scope for that kind of grid balancing in the broader sense of the term, using hydrogen as one of the storage media as well. We're drawing to a close, so I'm going to ask, we hear endlessly and quite rightly about the dangers and problems of climate change and about the risks to our societies, to our industries, to our economies. But I think we've heard today that there are also some reasons for optimism. So I'm just going to very quickly give each panelist 30 seconds to tell us their favourite reasons to be optimistic about the future, given the role that hydrogen can play in the energy transition and what a difference that can make to the futures of ourselves and our children and children's children.
Absolutely. I would say that the momentum is with us, the technology is viable, and it's just a question of now how do we organise it to get it done and to get these projects away. So I see this as not a question of whether it will happen, it will be how quickly we can make it. So that's the key part of it. And as you say, I like to see a world where my children have a different problem, which will be the next phase of what is an even cleaner way of operating, more efficient way. But I see this one is orders of magnitude much better than what we've been operating in the last, the last 200 years.
Thanks, Chris.
I think for me, we've been talking for a long time about the need for action to combat climate change, and it becomes ever more apparent that need is urgent. We'll talk about the optimism, but just again to that context, the Paris Agreement set a target of remaining 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial level. Last year we were at 1.7, nearly 1.8. So for the entire calendar year, we've exceeded that Paris Agreement. So the need is absolutely urgent to decarbonise our economies. Fortunately, a lot of work has been done already, working on projects like HyNet, a lot of thinking over the last 6-7 years to develop that understanding of how we decarbonise difficult parts of our economies. So the understanding is there now to be able to do this. So, as Dave said, what we need is that next step, because until we actually have pipes in the ground and infrastructure there to decarbonise, we haven't actually removed any carbon for our economy. We've only talked about it. So there are opportunities there to do that, to get this done. Another sense for optimism for the future is that the thinking that has been done has created a blueprint for other regions, other parts of the UK, other parts of Europe, to learn from that experience and do things better and faster than has been done in the past. So we can accelerate that progress if we work together and aim to deliver a net zero economy as quickly as we can.
Thanks, Chris. Nea.
I will just add to your comment that I think that it's very important to have a public acceptance of the hydrogen because I don't know how is it in other countries, but I know that in Slovenia a lot of people are thinking you don't do anything near to my house, near to my village, near to my city, just go outside of it and it's fine. But I think that it needs to be changed, and the public acceptance of the hydrogen also should be more higher. And I think that with all the knowledge that is existing, and together with the public acceptances, a lot of things can change and fast. So.
Thanks, Ionea. Vieko.
Well, I'm optimistic. And, well, there is several reasons. One, I already mentioned that we have chance now to move the dependence on the import of the fossil fuels. We also need to think about the climate change. So basically, and you show, I'm not sure which one, show that only possibilities is to have electricity or hydrogen. So we need to boost the hydrogen economy, we need to boost research. But I think I learned that from Professor Barbier, keep it simple. So where you can use electricity, you will use electricity, but there is, you know, different options where electricity is not enough. So the hydrogen is perfect solution for that. And I drove the hydrogen car, it's fantastic, so I'm optimistic.
Okay. Claire, the final word to you.
Yeah, just easily build on what's been said around the relationships and the partnerships that have been built, and in Aberdeen to no longer be the only people delivering the projects. You know, we started and it was Aberdeen City Council. What are they doing? There wasn't much buy-in, even from our own politically, and we now have that. So things are changing and improving, and that we have the likes of Energy Transition Zone Limited in the region. Scottish Enterprise are also now very interested. So these things are changing and developing, and it will happen. And then just to touch briefly on public perception, communication is and always will be key to the public. And we spoke briefly about this last night, and that in Aberdeen, they don't care generally what mode of, you know, if the bus shows up on time, it doesn't matter if it's hydrogen or not. They don't care, and that's the best possible outcome. There's not that nervousness there, and with having the cars in the local car club, it allows members of the public to be driving the cars, which are lovely to drive as well. So yeah, let's be optimistic.
Okay, well, thank you, Claire. Thank you to the rest of the panel. Thank you to our speakers who were remotely with us on video, and to obviously the ambassador for his opening remarks and for organising and hosting this event. It's been a pleasure to be with you all today. We're going to have, I think, a bite to eat just outside here, and the opportunity to network and ask all of those questions that you've got in your heads but didn't raise your hand to ask during the event itself. It's been a pleasure to pass this time with you. I think there are lots of grounds for optimism, but it's not blind optimism. It's the optimism that says we know what to do, we need to get on and do it, and if we do it, there is hope for the future. So more collaboration, more learning from the experiences of those who've gone before, and accelerating everything that we need to do to try and meet the targets that were set. Thankfully, Paris talked about consecutive years of busting that target. So we're all hopeful that last year El Nino played a role and we will get it back down a little bit, but maybe that's blind optimism. Thank you all very much indeed. A round of applause, please, for our panel. Tomislav, would you like to lead the way to show people it's not far, it's literally open the door, you'll fall into the food. Thanks again.